Hi, this is David with EdgeStar Technical Support. Today we're going to cover beer line cleaning on the KC2000, KC2000 SS, and the KC2000 Twin. We're also going to go over the different types of kegs that are used in the unit, and we're also going to go over some common questions and answers about beer and how, if you run into any issues, what might cause them once you get your system up and running. One of the things that we're going to talk about today is cleaning your beer lines. It's very important to keep these kegerators in peak operating condition, so we want to make sure that we keep the lines spotless. And you really should wash your lines and clean your lines after each and every keg. So today I'm going to introduce you to the cleaning kit. We're going to go through the individual pieces, and then we'll show you how it works. And again, you really should clean after each and every keg. So to begin with, once you unpack the cleaning box, here's what comes in the box. We have our quart bottle. You have instructions with photos. You have a beer line brush. You have another packet. This is your powdered cleaning material, your O-ring for your faucet shank, and your lifter for your check ball and your coupler. So that's what comes with it. And you also get the faucet wrench here as well. But you should have one of those from when you actually installed the kegerator to begin with, but they give you a spare one. The other piece of equipment here, this takes the place of your beer faucet. This end of it hooks to the cleaning bottle here, and then this end will actually take the place of your faucet. So I'm going to go through the procedure, and then you'll know how to clean your lines. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and go through the procedure of cleaning our kegerator. And as you can see here, I've got a couple of the lines. Let me talk for a second about the importance of cleaning. So if you don't clean these units, they can become unsanitary, and that could potentially make you sick. Plus, you can also damage your equipment. So it's very important to keep everything clean. So I'm going to step you through each procedure about how to clean your kegerator, and you'll always have clean lines, coupler, and good beer coming out of the tap. So first off, I wanted to show you the difference between a clean line and a dirty one. So as you can see here, I've got this nice clean line, and then I've got one here that's got lots of stuff in it, and detritus and dirt and dried beer stone, or what they call that. So our ultimate objective here is to get this line to look like this one. So we're going to go through that procedure. Now on our dirty coupler here, I want to show you the difference. And as you can see at the bottom of this one, it's got all kinds of dried beer and detritus in there as well. So, and here's another comparison. So we want to get this one to look like this one. So that's how we're going to do that. So I'm going to set this dirty line aside for just a second, and then we're going to get an introduction to our materials here and how this works. Our very first step is to prepare our cleaning solution. And like any good cook, we always have a recipe. So in this case, our recipe calls for a gallon of hot water and a tablespoon of beer cleaning solution. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our powdered beer cleaning solution, which is here in this packet. And this provides quite a few cleanings, obviously, as you can see. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a tablespoon of this to a gallon of water. Now, just for illustration, I have a little trash can here, a bucket, and you're going to mix a gallon of water in here with 1 tablespoon of solution, and then you're going to take some of that and you're going to put it in your little quart bottle. Now, you want to use water that's as hot as you can get it. Usually 130 to 140, good hot tap water. You don't need to boil anything. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to disassemble the system, and as you can see, I've got these couplers loose here. I'm going to be using these for illustration purposes. So what we would do here is we're going to disconnect everything, and then the first thing we're going to do after we've got our solution mixed up is we're going to take our faucet off. Now, the faucet wrench that came with the unit is fine. They give you a faucet wrench with your beer cleaning kit, and that's fine. You can use that too. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take my wrench, and I'm going to loosen up our lines here. Sometimes it can be a little tricky. Alright, there we go. So what we're going to do we're going to take our faucet off. Now we've got an empty port there where our faucet was. So we're going to set our faucet aside for just a second. And what we're going to do, your kit comes with an adapter that takes the place of the faucet, and there's a rubber O-ring as well. So on this blue end, you have a blue cap on one end. That, of course, is going to screw onto our cleaning bottle. The other end of this has a coupler to take the place of our faucet. And as you can see, I've already got the gasket already in place. So you're just going to push that in there until it's seated all the way around. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get it inserted into our faucet opening here. And we're going to tighten it up. Now you don't want it too tight, but you can snug it up with the wrench, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to get my tool and I'm going to snug it up until it's tight. You don't want to over tighten it. Remember, we don't want to crack any of this stuff here. So now we've got our cleaning bottle hooked up, and then down below we've got our lines disconnected from the coupler. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flush this line out. So what you would do is you're going to pick this bottle up. This is a gravity feed system. So we're going to pick it up and you're going to hold it up here above the faucet. You're going to hold it up in the air upside down. You're going to let about half that bottle flow through the line. Then you're going to stop and you're going to set the bottle back upright like I've got it there. That'll get this cleaning solution into the line and get it introduced into the system. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our coupler and we're going to clean our coupler first, because that's where all the stuff starts at. So what we want to do is make sure that that's clean. So what we do, included in your package here, we have a check ball lifter. And this wire section simply inserts up into here, and it keeps this check ball pushed up inside it. This is your gas side of the beer side of the wine. This is your gas side. This is your liquid side. So your check ball is now being pushed up inside of here. I can't show you that, but once you insert this all the way until it stops, your check ball is lifted. So what you're going to do is you're going to hook your line back up to the coupler here up top. So you're going to hook your line in, and then you're going to set this over the bucket, and we're going to flush that. So you're going to let that solution out of the line that you've got trapped in there. Once you do that, that'll get that cleaning process and get those chemicals introduced into your coupler. Then what you can do is pull your lifter out, or you can leave it in. It doesn't really matter. I'd probably just leave it in because it's not going to hurt anything. And we're going to take this entire coupler and we're going to soak it in that bucket. So that leftover solution that you didn't use in your bottle, we're going to use for soaking. You want to leave it sitting there for about an hour or so, and that'll soften all the deposits, and we'll get that stuff out of there. So we're going to let this soak in that bucket. Now, you want to do that for a while to get those deposits to soften up. Once you do that, you're going to pull this coupler back out of your bucket, remove your lifter. Now that those deposits are real soft because they've been soaking in there for a while, we're going to insert our brush in here and we're going to twirl it around, and we're going to make sure that we get all those deposits out. And then you can actually go back in and you can scrub all this up here. You can set this back in the bucket if you want for a little while longer. And then once you're done, you're going to take this coupler and run it under hot water and flush it all out to get all that stuff out that you've already loosened up with your brush and that we loosened up by soaking. The same principle applies to your faucet as well. So I'm going to use this faucet here for illustration. So what we want to do is we want to get this brush up into the faucet opening. As you can see, it'll go all the way up in there. So we can soak this faucet too. As a matter of fact, you can use the same procedure for both of these pieces. So we can soak our faucet for a little while along with the coupler, pull it back out, and we're going to scrub it. You work the brush in and out, twist it around, then you can put it back in there, let it soak a little longer, and then you're going to flush this with hot water as well. So we want to make sure that this is clean. Your beer lines and all of that, the plastic lines that carry the beer up into the tower, you want to make sure they're clean. Flush it out with hot water afterwards. You can just run it with the water and just run it through the line to clean it. Once you're done with all of that, you can discard the cleaning solution, and then we're going to let everything air dry. So we don't want to dry anything with any towels or anything, because if there's any contaminants on the towel, we can get lint up in the system. We can, introduce substances that we don't want, cleaning fluids or, wax or anything that might be on that towel. We don't want that. So we want to let everything air dry. preferably overnight, or at least for several hours. After that, we can reassemble the system, hook our beer back up, and now we've got clean lines, good tasting beer, and it's got a good head on it. I wanted to cover briefly some of the kegs that we use in our kegerators. Now, of course, we have a single tap and a dual tap kegerator, and I've got 4 of the most commonly sized units here, the kegs themselves. So what we're going to talk about is just a little bit about each one. The important thing to remember here is if you have a single tap kegerator, you can only use one of these at a time, no matter what size they are. On the dual tap kegerators, you can also use these one at a time, or if you're going to use both faucets, you're confined to the 6th barrel, because it'll only fit 2 of these. So this is a 6th barrel. It's a fairly common size. And we'll move on to our other one. So these, as you notice, there are no rubber. They don't bulge out in the middle, and they'll fit just fine, including these 6 kegs here as well. So let's talk about our slim quarter here. So this is a slim quarter, and it's a little bit bigger than the 6th keg. But again, with the dual tap kegerator, you can't fit 2 of these. They just won't fit. They're too big. So you can use one of these in either unit, whether it be a single or dual tap. And then, of course, we have our regular standard half barrels back here. And if you'll notice, one of them is a little bit shorter than the other one, and it's a little bit different in diameter as well. And that's another point to remember real quick. Your maximum diameter on these barrels that you can fit in these kegerators is 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch. Again, that's 16 and 1/8 of an inch. That's the maximum barrel size. Depending on the brewery and depending on the kind of beer that we have in the kegs, they may use different kegs because they get them from different suppliers. So as you can see, like I said, this one's a little bit shorter than this one. This one's a little bit bigger around than that one. So they hold the same amount of beer, they're just in slightly different shapes. And that's okay. So just important to remember that you can't get any of these bigger ones. You can't double them up on the dual tap kegerator, and you can't do anything bigger than a 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch in diameter on your keg. And they are out there, but they're rare. Now that you're familiar with your kegerator, both your twin tap and your single tap, and you set it up, and you used it for a while, and you've cleaned it now, I've showed you how to clean it. There are some things that you can run into before and after you clean the unit. I wanted to talk about some conditions that may or may not be present. Hopefully you don't have any issues and the beer flows fine and it's good and cold and tasty, but sometimes you can run into problems, and I wanted to talk about a few of those today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is cloudy beer. Now cloudy beer, it's not clear, it's not that clear amber color, it's cloudy, it looks off, it just doesn't look good. And that's cloudy beer. And a lot of times that can be caused by the lines in the system being too cold. You've got the kegerator set too cold, and it's been sitting in those lines for a while, and then all of a sudden we get this cloudy beer coming out of the tap. And it usually won't clear up. So what you need to do is make sure that your kegerator is set roughly about 38 to 42 degrees, depending on the beer that you're running. Some of them may run a degree or two colder, but that's a general range, 38 to 42. We don't want to get any lower than that. So that can be one cause of cloudy beer. Another condition that we might run into is flat beer. The beer is flat, there's no foam, it's just dead. And a lot of times when we use glasses that get washed in the dishwasher, and we use dishwasher soap, or we wash them by hand in the sink, and we use dishwashing detergent, all of that, the substance it leaves behind is a fatty protein. Same thing if you were to drink a glass of milk and then rinse it out later, that protein is still on the glass itself. And what can happen is that protein will break down the foam, and then we don't have any foam in the beer and it just looks bad. And lipstick also can cause that same thing. So if you have a glass that you're using regularly, you want to make sure that you don't use anything that has a fatty protein in it, no milk or anything like that. And when you wash your glass, you want to make sure that it's clean, it's been air dried, and you didn't use any soap on it. You also want to make sure that when you dry your glasses, you let them air dry. You don't want to wash them or dry them with a towel, because we can leave debris and impurities on the glass, and that's something that we don't want to do. Something else we can run into is loose foam. Typically those are temperature and pressure issues. Your beer manufacturer will usually set a pressure for the system that you would use for that particular beer. We recommend you start out with about 4 pounds of pressure on the system and then gradually ramp your way up. Now, you can also make sure that when you set your pressures that you don't set them too high. So we really don't want anything over about 8 pounds. 8 pounds, we're starting to get into that high range. So make sure your pressures are set correctly. Make sure your temperatures are set correctly. Something else we can run into is an off-taste beer. The beer just doesn't taste right. It's off. It just tastes weird. And 9 times out of 10, that's due to one big factor, that's improper cleaning. As I discussed in my cleaning video, we need to make sure that these lines are perfectly clean, because not only will that affect the taste of the beer, but it will also affect the quality of the beer as well. And we want everything to be of the highest quality all the time. So make sure your lines are clean. Make sure your faucet is clean, your coupler is clean, and your lines are clean at all times. Another thing that we can run into is sour beer. It just tastes awful. It's bitter, it's sour, it's just not right. It just tastes really funky. And what can happen there, the biggest reason for that type of beer, for a sour beer, is improper handling. So at some point that beer heated up beyond the temperature range that it should be, again roughly 38 to 42 degrees. So at some point between the time it was brewed and packed into the keg and it was delivered to your local liquor store or favorite place where you get your beer, it's warmed up and it started secondary fermentation. And we really don't want that, because the beer will continue to get worse and worse and worse all on its own, even though you've got it in the keg and it's being cooled. Once it starts secondary fermentation, it's going to create its own heat source, and the keg's not going to be, the kegerator here isn't going to be able to compensate for that. So you need to make sure that your beer is fresh and it wasn't mishandled. And you get that, typically you would find a good beer with a good, reputable liquor store or beer handler that you would normally use. Something else we can run into is what they call wild beer. And basically what that is our foam is out of control. It's all over the place, flows out of the glass, all over the top of your nice kegerator, and it's just out of control. And to really be honest, a lot of that has to do with the way you draw the beer out of the tap. And you really need to have a nice angle on it. And when you pull that faucet open, you need to pull it open right away. Don't ease it open, just pull it open and let it flow. And if your pressures and everything are set right and your temperature's good, you'll get the perfect glass of beer. And that's what we really want. One other condition that we may run into from time to time is what we call tail end beer. And basically what that is, sometimes people will substitute the CO2 in your tank for regular air, atmospheric air, which contains water, moisture, there could be anything in that airstream. And what will happen is, it starts out really good when you do that pull. It starts out really good, but as you get to the bottom of the keg, well, you really don't have any foam. It's going to taste funky, and like I said, the foam's going to be bad on it. So you need to really make sure that you use CO2. We really don't recommend the use of air. And where you get your CO2 from, you need to make sure they're a reputable supplier. To end this, I just want to say that the biggest contributor to any of these problems and how to rectify it is to make sure that you clean your kegerator thoroughly after each and every keg change. Without fail. You can't skip a cleaning. I'm sure when you run out of beer, you're excited to get that next keg in there and get it flowing again, but you really need to take the time to clean your coupler, your lines, and your faucet first. And you'll have a good beer every single time. I hope that this do-it-yourself video has helped you to set up and maintain your kegerator. This covers the KC2000, KC2000 SS, and KC2000 Twin. If you have any questions or concerns, contact EdgeStar at www.edgestar.com. Hi, this is David with EdgeStar Technical Support. Today we're going to cover beer line cleaning on the KC2000, KC2000 SS, and the KC2000 Twin. We're also going to go over the different types of kegs that are used in the unit, and we're also going to go over some common questions and answers about beer and how, if you run into any issues, what might cause them once you get your system up and running. One of the things that we're going to talk about today is cleaning your beer lines. It's very important to keep these kegerators in peak operating condition So we want to make sure that we keep the lines spotless. And you really should wash your lines and clean your lines after each and every K. So today I'm going to introduce you to the cleaning kit. We're going to go through the individual pieces and then we'll show you how it works. And again, you really should clean after each and every K. So to begin with, once you unpack the cleaning box, here's what comes in the box. We have our quart bottle. You have instructions with photos. You have a beer line brush. You have another packet. This is your powdered cleaning material, your O-ring for your faucet shank, and your lifter for your check ball and your coupler. So that's what comes with it. And you also get the faucet wrench here as well. But you should have one of those from when you actually installed the kegerator to begin with. But they give you a spare one. The other piece of equipment here, this takes the place of your beer faucet. This end of it hooks to the cleaning bottle here. And then this end will actually take the place of your faucet. So I'm going to go through the procedure and then you'll know how to clean your lines. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and go through the procedure of cleaning our kegerator. As you can see here, I've got a couple of the lines. Let me talk for a second about